When I came there, one of the tallest buildings, I think, in Caracas, or at least not one of the tallest, but an old tall building, is the CNE. At the center, it is just placed so centrally in the city that you could compare it with the opera in Copenhagen or with something like that, which was my first impression. All right, they do take elections serious here in Venezuela. They put a lot of emphasis in that, and they placed also the authority that is controlling the process just in the heart of the capital, very visible and with very much credibility in every sense. And this woman absolutely also with a lot of credibility and strength. I came on Wednesday, the 3rd of October, and on the 4th, the day after, there was called for a big meeting in Caracas. There was a mobilization from all over the country, and I was expecting to experience something similar to a 1st of May in Havana. That was my expectations, and that is among my biggest and greatest experiences. But this, I must say, was surpassing any expectation. 2 million, 2.5 million, 3 million, I don't know how many, so many people there. And with a wonderful spirit. They were so happy, they were so combative, they were so focused on this election. And we were standing there in this street, Avenida Bolivar, in the center of Caracas, and we had very good time to speak with each other. We started there at 9 o'clock, and Chavez was expected to speak at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So in 38 degrees Celsius and with the sun shining, we had some 6 or 7 hours together there. So that was great. It was a bit hard, but we had some water. And I was speaking to a lot of people. And I can assure you that meeting these people that came from mountain areas and came from the countryside, that came from the barrios, the poor areas around the capital, all these people, they had different stories to tell, but there were some common aspects of those stories, which was that they were so proud, they were so enthusiastic about the process that they were part of creating the new Venezuela together. And this crucial election that they were participating in, that this was another struggle and another victory that they were expecting. I met a farmer, a vice president from a farmers collective out in the countryside, telling me a long, good story about how they work in the countryside to develop agriculture, to develop the production, the home production in Venezuela of food for the population. We hear from the press here that, well, something is not too good in Venezuela because they have to import a lot of food. Well, they have to import a lot of food, but things are not the way that we normally hear. Many times they say that they import 70% of foodstuffs to Venezuela. This man and other information I got there told me that they are on track to producing much more food in Venezuela, and in fact something like 30% is imported. So therefore, big political speeches I met there in this place in the center of Caracas, and also a lot of practical information I could gather there speaking to people. A woman, a teacher that I don't know if she was illiterate when this Bolivarian revolution started some 10 years ago, but maybe she was, I don't remember. But now she's a teacher in one of the education projects, the project Ribas, or the mission Ribas it's called, where they organize study, where they organize school education for people in her village. And so on, meeting a lot of people there, having a lot of good stories from people that are not just on a ride with Chavez. No, they are working with Chavez. They are struggling with the Bolivarian revolution, with each other, developing a new Venezuela, which is absolutely moving and very and very, what is the word? Very, well, it's touching and moving, all these things, but also it confirms that a better world is being created day by day in Venezuela. And, well, I have to look in my paper because I have to make sure I'm not just... Then the following days. Now I have to say that one thing that I was there, you know, invited. I'm a journalist in Arbejderen. I was invited there to be watching what goes on, and of course I brought my red heart with me, my socialist dream, and going to Venezuela and seeing that a nation there is taking steps in the direction of socialism was also very convincing, very confirming for, well, the belief that we can make this dream possible someday. On the next story I'm going to tell about is the election day. On the 7th of October, people started at about 5 o'clock in the morning. It was so that both the opposition and the government, the Bolivarian government and Chavez, they had mobilized people, said to them, please rise early, go to the polling places, go and vote and do it early so that we can make it a good process during the day and we can finish and have the result before midnight. And I went up, as Chavez had said, early and went to the polling stations. And that was great. I had decided I wanted to go to two places where I knew the opposition would have a stronghold, to meet these people that are skeptical or are contrary to the Bolivarian revolution, to speak with them. And I decided I would go to at least two places also where I knew that the neighborhood was in favor of Chavez, in favor of the Bolivarian revolution. And it was very interesting and a very positive experience in both places, I must say. I could only feel a deep respect for democracy in both places. I don't know if I'm sure I've not seen all corners of Venezuela, and there might be people that do not have this attitude. But the people I met in 4 election places in Caracas, both where the rich ones and where the middle class and where the poorer people lived, they all expressed a deep respect for the democracy or for the election system that Venezuela has now, and expressed that they of course would respect the result. They hoped for different things. Those who supported Capriles Radonsky of course hoped he would win. But all I spoke with said, well, if he loses, well, then that's it. Then we're going to continue the other way around, which I like very much. I think that if it's possible for Venezuela not only to develop itself as a country under these new circumstances, but also to demonstrate that there is a democratic path forward, then it's very confirming for a lot of countries and very inspiring. And we could see in this film that some of the electoral observers that were in previous elections, because this was not the election that just took place, in previous elections from Chile, from Argentina and other countries, they were confirming that Latin America is watching what goes on in Venezuela now. Actually, it's an inspiring example for the whole of the continent. Of course, I was happy when Chavez won. I won't make a secret of that. So therefore, it was a great evening on October the 7th, when we sat in the big tent and had the result, the very well, secure result in any way. And we saw there also, apart from the CNE representatives giving the green stamp to the result, also electoral observers from UNASUR, from the community of South American states and governments, and also some hundreds of not political observers, because Venezuela did not invite observers to this election. And I do agree with the consideration of the Venezuelan government, not to say, well, we don't need observers for our election, because our election is absolutely as straightforward as any election in any developed country, in any democratic country. So what they invited was people that could follow the process and tell about what goes on, not observers that had some kind of a judging moral long finger in the air. They were not invited, and we were not acting like that, which is completely in accordance with the situation in that country. After the result was told in the meeting there and on the medias in Venezuela, and I must also say the medias in Venezuela is some kind of a mess. I lived in a hotel, and to make sure I got all the impressions possible in the few days I were there. So I sat around on television station when I was in the hotel, not just to listen to the VTV, which is a government-owned station, but I went to a lot of different TV stations to have an impression of how is the media, how is the newspapers. I bought newspapers in the day. I listened to radio. I watched television, and I think that every opinion had a possibility to be expressed on a mass scale on TV in Venezuela, on a mass scale in big newspapers and in radio. So therefore also the basic necessity of information for everybody and every opinion is also shared in that country. Well, after that we went to the street and we had the biggest party from the 7th at 11 o'clock at night until early morning, the 8th, a wonderful party in Caracas. And then let me finish with some consideration about, two things more. I want to stress that it's obvious that this election victory for the Bolivarian revolution and for Hugo Chavez as president is very promising for the Venezuelan people. They can continue developing their country, solving social problems, solving economic problems, and they work hard on that. But it is also a victory for many other things. It's a victory for ALBA cooperation between Venezuela, Cuba, Bolivia, Nicaragua, Ecuador. 3 Caribbean island states are also members of that, and a lot of other countries are linked to aspects of this ALBA cooperation. This is some of the most, we're not going to speak much about that tonight. Well, okay, if somebody wants to discuss it, we can do it later. I heard that Corbacho said we could have a discussion here with things. But for me, ALBA cooperation is the most beautiful things that has been created in the international environment among nations. This will continue because Venezuela is a very important partner in ALBA cooperation. Venezuela has a lot of resources, as we all know, petroleum and money and things like that, and a lot of people. Venezuela is a big part, a very big and important part of the ALBA cooperation, together with the other countries I mentioned. This can continue. The whole project of uniting Latin America gets inspiration and get a push from Chavez and from Venezuela. This can continue. The left wing, I know in Europe, I know in Denmark, and I think all over the world, as far as I can read in newspapers and on internet, people are watching and getting inspiration. Left-wingers, socialists, revolutionaries are getting inspiration from Venezuela. That will continue, that spreading of energy and inspiration from Venezuela. And I also think that the project that also the Bolivarian revolution and Chavez focus on, to create a more balanced world with UNASUR, with CELAC, with all these organizations that South countries, they get more power, they get a stronger position in the world, will contribute to a more balanced world and hopefully, possibly also to a more peaceful world. So also in that aspect, I think that the victory to Hugo Chavez and the victory to the Bolivarian revolution plays a significant role on that international scale. My last input now is from the day after the election. I went to see the Communist Party of Venezuela the day after. I had heard they had a press conference Monday the 8th in the morning, so I went there to listen to how they analyzed the situation, to listen to how they consider the result and how they would talk about the challenges ahead. And as I only know Venezuela from outside, I have confidence in the analysis that I heard this day, and I must tell for those who did not know about this, the Venezuelan Communist Party is a strong ally of Chavez and of the Bolivarian Revolution. So they are in that together, and they were very happy with the result. They consider it's very important to continue fortifying and developing this broad anti-imperialistic alliance, this national alliance, Gran Polo Patriótico, they call it, where they unite all the people that want to defend the Bolivarian Revolution, that want to defend Venezuela as an independent state, and put an end to exploitation, to North American exploitation of Venezuela. But within that process of considering critically the result of the election, they also put focus on the fact that Capriles Radonsky and the opposition, they got 6.5 million votes, which is a lot of votes. Chavez got 8.3 or something like that, so he got a lot more. But that does not mean that there is not 6.5 million people who voted for Capriles. There is. They live there in Venezuela, and they have their interests, they have their power, they have their goals which they are fighting for. And in this analysis that the Communist Party made of the election, they were discussing, or they made an appeal to Chavez and to the PSUV, the big socialist unity party in the country, about sitting down together and talk. What are we doing wrong, or what are we not doing the best possible way in a situation where 6.5 million people, they do not feel included in this process. We have to find ways to include, if not all of them, at least a major part of these people. So that's what they are discussing now, and they are busy doing that because the next elections is just in 2 months from now or something like that. The 16th of December. We'll have another election in Venezuela. In this, you could, I think they said, we have the best election system in the world. I'd like some competition on that. It's very good with fighting for having the best electoral system. They have a very good electoral system there, and I'm looking forward to the next election in December, and are very curious about the result. I hope for Chavez and the Bolivarian Revolution to be stronger, but they have a lot of challenges, and they are working on that. Yeah, I think that could be it for now, and I'm ready together with Dr. Corbacho and to talk and to answer questions. So thank you a lot for listening.
Just a few words. There are 3 key words from the speech of Sven as a witness of the process that I want to get on focus. Missions, imperialism, and then the acceptance of the results. I will finish or the electoral system or the whole process. First, the imperialism. Okay, Chavez is in a position against imperialism, but the good thing of all is that even the opposition, the right hand, okay, which came from right-hand parties, the candidate was telling, I'm also against imperialism. but not only North American, also Cuban. Well, okay, the balance, okay? But the best thing is that a speech of against imperialism or domination from abroad is included in the political debate, even for right and left hands. First thing. Second, one of the main things that the candidate of the opposition say, I'm going to keep the missions. I will talk about what's the mission. I will keep the missions. And that was important for him to gain votes. The missions is a program ruled by Chavez and the Bolivarian government, and it means basically one thing. Most of the interest of the state is addressed to social investment. You can't get developed if you don't have a huge and fundamental investment in social aspects, welfare, education, and so protection. I think that's the key word for the result of the elections. Why does Chavez win with 8.5 million votes? Because there is almost 60% of the public investment, the public sector, in social aspects. And the programs of social investment came from what you mentioned, the cooperation between countries. I just want to put it simple. We have a lot of oil, Bolivia have a lot of quinoa, Cuba have a lot of good doctors, and Nicaragua have a lot of meat. Instead of putting a commercial price on all that and getting bankruptcy, the 5 countries, let's put a social price in the production of benefit, what we call, or usually in Marxist terms, the value of use. It's a balance between the value of use and the value, the monetary value, the commercial value. It's a balance, the social, the unit social production cost. And we share. So we can have good doctors, good quinoa, good beans or meat, and they will have good oil. Okay? So that's the key. And last but not least is the acceptance of the whole process. 3 simple features. First, 76% of the population who votes in the past elections are agree with the results. 76. That means, of course, the 100% of those with Chavez, but a strong part of the opposition, they accept the result as valid. There's only a 5% that I suppose that belongs to the opposition or part of the opposition, because I can't imagine how someone with Chavez can think that the results were not fair. So only 5%. Remember that 81% of the population voted, and 76% of the population are agree with the result. And second of all, that is the most important, 62% of the population thinks, or they believe that things are going right in Venezuela. And that addressed me to the third feature. Chavez only wins by 55%. So what means the difference, the gap between 55 and 62? That means that an important part also of the opposition, they think that things are going in the right direction, even that they are against Chavez. That's the basic, the essence, the pure essence of democracy. So now, please, I will just want to invite you, any questions, we can just share. We will have some delicious Christmas dishes, but if there is any question that we can share now, public, we can do it.
Yes. Svend-Erik, you told what you said very soon is another election in December. You see, this one was the October was about presidency. What is the next about?
Governors.
Governors,
like regions. We have 24 regions. Okay, and in April is the commune elections, the local election in April. Till now, if we include the elections, this one, the presidential, we have had 16 elections in 13 years. So we managed to have more elections. That's how we believe in democracy. the possibility of participating, not only to introduce a paper, but to have the opportunity to express. We had lost one, and Chavez lost one election, and the other was more or less a tie.